Hello, Guardians, and welcome to Destiny Reset, episode 116. This podcast is about anything and everything related to Destiny the game. If you love playing Destiny as much as we do, you're in the right place. This reset, we invite back Joe Meaden on the show as we look forward to the first Iron Banner, talk about what seasons could mean for Destiny 2, and finally get to explore what the end game means for us. Hello, Guardians, and welcome. It's CyborgSasquatch, and I am here with Joe Meaden. Welcome, Joe.
It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to have you back. We haven't had you on since Destiny 2 released, and that is a shame. So we had to get you back on the show soon, and it's for great reason. You're standing in for Mr. AER0KNIGHT, our other co-host this week. He's missed again, but I think you'll fill his shoes just fine.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough shoes to fill, but I will do my best. Arrow, wish you a speedy recovery, man. Hope you're feeling better soon.
Yep. This just in, AER0KNIGHT is dying, so thoughts and prayers. Just kidding. He's fine. Just lost his voice a little bit, so he'll be back on probably next week. Knock on wood. All right. We got just one announcement real quick. Tell us about this freebie we're giving out, Joe.
You see, there's this lovely tracer rifle in Destiny 2, which is a fun video game that we like to play. And you can redeem this code and get said tracer rifle known as Cold Heart. And we have a code that we'd like to give you. And so if you have your code fingers ready, the code is M24272Q2M762V7HDZ. If you take that and you punch that into Bungie.net, I think that's the right place to put it, right, Cyborg?
Yep, Bungie.net/redeem.
If you put it there, then you can go back to the tower, and I think the gunsmith
pick up
or the
nice
postmaster, somebody,
Cold Heart,
they will give you this lovely tracer rifle, which is a decent amount of fun, and it's not really that effective in Crucible, but man, is it fun to kill people with it.
And it's great for PvE.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
Absolutely.
It works almost like a power weapon. It's kind of weird.
Yep. It's a staple. It's a staple in a lot of the activities I play in. So this is a one-time use code, so whoever got there first, congrats. I would encourage you, if you did not get the pre-order bonus, this is why you would want to use this. So a very generous Dirt Fan member donated this to give away. Thank you. You know who you are. And that is all the announcements for this week.
Yay, announcements.
Yay. All right, time for news. Want to talk some news?
Yeah, I love the news.
All right, let's get started with This Week at Bungie. Plenty to talk about in This Week at Bungie. Of course, first of all, the announcement that, no surprise, as I predicted and everybody else knew was going to happen, Dead Orbit won the faction rally. What do you think about this, Joe? What did you pledge for the faction rally?
I don't like Dead Orbit, man. They're just too emo. I did
so sad.
Well, I pledged all 3 on Xbox, but on PlayStation I only had 2 characters that were level 20, so I did the ones that were not Dead Orbit. So
New Monarchy, Future War Cult.
Yeah, so the New Monarchy shaders, by the way, are unbelievable.
So good, man.
And I think that they win the award.
100 of them.
Yeah. So I think that they win the award for coolest shaders. And honestly, I know this is a weird opinion. I think that their guns were all around the best of the 3 factions. Because I think they were
monarchies.
Yeah. I think they were all like
really
average to above average weapons. Whereas there were some serious stinkers in the other 2 loot pools, in my opinion. But that's just me. A
lot of people were really lauding the Future War Cult weapon selection.
Yeah, they didn't do it for me. I didn't really like them. The sniper rifle I thought was just really lame, because sniper rifles right now are really lame. And I didn't like the hand cannon. Like, A lot of people I know really enjoyed it, but I felt like I have a better Devils. That just seems to be better to me. And I think there was like a post on Reddit saying that it actually doesn't do more DPS. And so I found myself really not liking the hand cannon. And then the Scout, I have Phenomena or whatever it's called. I like that one way better. And so it's another case of like, it's kind of like below average in my book. Whereas I felt like all the New Monarchy ones were like at least decent weapons that were like, I could totally take this into a strike or whatever and use it. Not top tier.
Yeah, the submachine gun was really good.
Yeah, the SMG was great. But not the best. You know, the shotgun was great.
Shotgun was really good,
but not the best.
It's a Hawthorne's single shot.
Yeah, because Hawthorne's is better. You know, for pretty much everything. And the Scout rifle was really good. You know, not great, not the best, but still really good. And the auto rifle was really good. I liked the archetype. It was different than your Uriel's Gift, and so it kind of had some variety there. But I thought it was good. I mean, like. That's why I would say that the weapon selection for New Monarchy was just better overall for me, for my play style, and for the things I like.
I think we're really missing out that we didn't get to try out the New Monarchy sidearm. I'm willing to bet it's a jewel.
I bet it is, because did you get the Scout rifle for Dead Orbit?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Oh yeah, I picked it up. I don't know, kind of underwhelming. Like. There's nothing amazing about it.
Yeah, the reload's really fast when you're crouched, but it's kind of a weird mechanic. I figure it's for all those guys that just constantly teabag because they've already got the muscle memory built in, right? You know, to crouch before they reload. But
after every kill they crouch.
Yeah, exactly, right. Dude. That's exactly what it's for, you know?
I like it.
Other than that, I don't think it's really. It's interesting. It's kind of like it does a cool thing, I guess, but I wasn't really feeling it. I thought it handles all right, but yeah, it was fine. It's another gun. I like guns.
So they did say they didn't say how many. Did they say how many total packages? I think it was like 60. 61 million reward packages were counted.
I was going to say 60 million, right around that ballpark.
Yeah, so. And Dead Orbit was ahead by a margin of 2 million. Which, in the grand scheme of things, that's actually kind of close.
Yeah,
I expected a lot more of the masses to pledge Dead Orbit, just judging by like everything that I read.
Yeah,
on social media and everywhere else.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be one that was decided by the average person because I mean, you got 3 characters, I got 3 characters. I gave faction packages.
A lot of people went on each one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I think the people that like primarily are listening to this podcast potentially, or, you know, that check Reddit every day. And, you know, a lot of those kind of players, they pledged all 3 factions and they gave a decent amount of packages, kind of a negligible net gain to any individual one. I gave the most to New Monarchy because I was a little partial to that, but maybe the net gain was like 3 or 4, you know? Whereas there's people out there that have 1 character, you know, and they're still making it through the content and they gave all 20 of their packages to Dead Orbit, you know, and that's I figured it'd be the average person that really decided, you know, who was going to win. And
I assumed
it was Dead Orbit this time. Well, it makes me sad because I love New Monarchy, and I will say Future War Cult. I mean, they were right. I loved I love those little speeches. The first time you talk to a vendor, you know how they like go through and they do their little spiel. Future War Cults was super legit. I don't know if you listened to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I listened to all of them.
So I felt like I wanted to pledge to Future War Cult, if only because they were right and everybody ignored them. So.
Yeah. But it's, the thing is though, is if you're always predicting war, and you're in a game where you're always at war, I mean, eventually you're going to be right. It's kind of like saying, like, Joe, you're going to be on the show. And I'm not right for like 6 weeks, but then when you're on, I'm like, told ya. You know?
Well, like, I mean, the question is though, do they know they're in a video game? Because, I mean, if they did, your point stands really well.
But maybe that's why when they go into their time machine, they lose their minds because
they realize
they enter reality where they realize they're a simulation, like they're in a Vex simulation, like that whole Grimoire story where the Ishar researchers find it, like they put themselves into the Vex network and then they realize that the Vex are simulating them being in the Vex network, and they're like, are we real or
yeah, that'll mess with your head a little bit.
Yeah, the whole Matrix, the whole red pill blue pill thing. So anyways, so yeah, we get the tower decorated in dead orbit for a while, which is, to be honest, kind of lame, but we'll go with it. I don't know how long anymore. I'm willing to bet that that's going to be on reset, that it's going to be all Iron Banner on that stuff. Like,
yeah, well, I think they said that.
I doubt that they would keep it flying all month or however long until the next one. It's probably just a week.
I think because they call it Victory Week in the last update. So I think that they said that Saladin's coming and they've got to change the decorations. I think that's in the This Week at Bungie, which is the next topic. Iron Banner.
Iron Banner.
My favorite Destiny 1 activity is returning. Which
we should have put this in announcements, but there's a tradition that we started in Destiny 1 as a clan and as a group called Derp Fan Banner that I think is absolutely deserving to return for Destiny 2. But every Iron Banner, the clan rallies together and we get everybody into fire teams and make sure that everyone is playing with each other, and you get full fire teams to go in Iron Banner because that makes it a lot more fun. And so that will absolutely be taking place. So I would encourage you to join up with your clan, individual clan if you can, or, you know, if you're not finding people, look across your console appropriate LFG channel in the Discord. Just say, hey, I'm up for Iron Banner. We'll be trying to make sure that people are getting picked up, getting made into fire teams, because when that event has gone successfully, I think it's been a ton of fun for the clan.
Yeah, agreed. And I want to encourage you guys. I was talking to somebody in general earlier today who was a little bit nervous about the whole, okay, it's PvP, I'm out. I want to encourage you. If you maybe don't love PvP, maybe you don't feel like you're great at it, jump in with this. It is really fun, and you'll meet some new friends. There are some people you'll play with, and you'll say, that was fun to play with them once, and I'm going to move on, you know? But you'll meet other people where you'll be like, I want to play with those people again, and they made it fun.
Yeah.
You're probably going to get a ton of loot. I would really encourage you, if you haven't really done a lot of PvP, this event is built around you to come in, enjoy it, have some fun, get some rewards, and just hang out. PvP in this game especially is so much better with the team.
Absolutely. And the population of players that are out there is going to be a lot greater, which means there's just a larger pool of players to play against and with. And so I would venture to say at sometimes the difficulty level is not quite as high. I mean, there were times in Destiny 1 when you would run into those fire teams that would definitely clean you up, but then you also will run across fire teams that are good matches or that you could best even as an average or even below average player. So this is a great time to wet your feet into the Crucible if that's not been your thing. And there is usually a ton of loot involved, which is a great impetus for anybody in playing Destiny to take place and take part in an event. And these armors look really sweet. I love the samurai aesthetic that they've chosen for this.
It's really cool. Yeah, these are not reskins, folks. This is like, go out and get this armor, man.
Total brand new stuff, yeah. And Iron Banner, all throughout D1, have always been my favorite armor sets. Like I would collect every single one over the years. And I'm not gonna stop at that now because these are really cool.
That's interesting. I don't think they were ever my favorite, but I just love the activity so much. I don't even know if I kept a full Iron Banner set, but that's cool that they look amazing this time. Like I'm really floored with how good the art is. I mean, the art's amazing throughout the whole game, but these armor sets look really distinct and really interesting.
I'm wondering if they're gonna like in seasons past if they're going to have some Iron Banner shaders. I mean, one would think, because shaders are pretty much everywhere on every activity now, right?
Yeah, there's shaders everywhere.
I think that they'll have some shaders, but they didn't say specifically. But that's another thing, you can pick up, is usually a cool shader.
Yeah. Let's just go through all of the specifics on it, just so that you kind of know what's happening. Iron Banner is starting on Tuesday, so by the time you get this podcast and hear it, it will be going on right now. Assuming there were no other problems or emergency maintenance windows that needed to happen, which is possible, you should be able to log in right now and see it. If you don't see Saladin in the tower when you spawn in, just go back to orbit and come back down. They had that issue with Faction Rally and said in the what is it, the What's Up doc technical
Destiny
thing.
player support.
Yeah, they said it in that section just to make sure you go back down. It is going to be control this time, so every time you match in, it's going to be control. It is always going to be a 4v4 still. There are going to be new armor and new weapons to obtain. It is not light enabled. Now, this is a change from previous Iron Banners where they made the light enabled, but it is not light enabled. It's just like Trials in D2, where once you have gotten past the campaign, you can compete because you're going to go visit Saladin in the tower to get your quest and to get your entrance into that playlist. And then after that, you do not have to have your highest light stuff on. It is not going to give you an advantage. It is not going to give you a disadvantage if somebody's 305. So I think that's good. It's, once again, an encouragement if you're, just to jump in. Bounties and ranks have been replaced with the Iron Banner Engram. And the Iron Banner will always be some quick play mode. So this time it's control. And it will use the same matchmaking algorithms as we see in quick play. So it won't be quite as focused on skill as the competitive playlist brings. Yeah. It'll be a little bit more relaxed and focus more on connection quality. And then you'll get tokens from winning. You'll get tokens from losing, but not quite as many. You can turn those in with Saladin to get even more rewards. And there's this ominous statement that says daily and season milestones will track your progress to glory. We don't know exactly what that means yet, but hopefully it means more loot, more rewards, and more cool stuff to earn. So that's kind of what we see from this week at Bungie. What do you think about this event coming up, Cyborg? What are you excited about? What were you surprised by? What do you think?
I'm excited. Obviously, I'm always very interested in the loot. I'm an armor fiend. I collected a lot of armor and always had a really full vault in Destiny 1, and that has not changed. So I want to get I want to pick up the armors. They didn't mention guns in here, and initially a lot of players were worried. They were like, oh man, no unique guns, but Bungie did correct with a tweet that there will be Iron Banner specific guns. And in the past, the Iron Banner guns have always been really great armaments in Destiny. I mean, some of the most impactful and interesting guns in the Crucible have come from Iron Banner. So, I don't know if that will necessarily be the case here, but it's certainly something to keep an eye on, and to see what those weapons are, what the roles are. They're typically Crucible oriented. So I'm interested to see what they put together for that.
Me too.
I can't remember who it was. Was it Josh Hamrick or somebody else? But they were talking about weapon roles and things in a tweet, and they pointed out hey, not all of the guns are in the game yet.
Yeah. And
these are definitely some of those guns that we haven't seen yet. So looking forward to that. But overall, I love the whole event of Iron Banner because it brings a lot of people together focused on that activity. In my, past experience, it brings, a lot of my friends list together. Everybody gets into big parties and we party up and we play games, and it's a little less, it's I would say a lot less stressful than Trials as a competitive activity.
Oh, a lot less by orders of magnitude.
So it's just a good time. You're going to lose some, you're going to win some. Either way, I think the way that they are balancing this out, I think either way it'll still be rewarding. I'm not surprised that it was not light or power level enabled. Just judging by what they did with Trials. Mm-hmm. And I think that's okay. They never really, in my opinion, got that aspect of the Crucible right. In Destiny 1, once you hit the top of the power curve, the differences were so negligible that it didn't serve a purpose at a point other than to gate the activity from people. Yep. So I think removing that aspect of it makes it accessible. It takes something out of the equation that really became negligible. This is one thing that counter to maybe what some people might feel, but in the end game of Destiny, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it doesn't matter what gear you have, but on the other hand, the boon of that is that you're not locked into wearing stuff just because it has a number tied into it. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases. There are some cases where you're going to want to pick your most powerful gear, but in a lot of activities, the way even activities that have a power level tied to them are, you can pick what you want and have those things be effective. And I think that that's a move in the right direction for making the gear that you have more meaningful, so that you can use more stuff. I think a problem in Destiny 1 was that I had so much stuff, but I only used about 1% of it. Mm-hmm. And the other 99% of it sat in a vault and only came out when I wanted to play with it. I mean, you had so much stuff. I remember this. You would make a game of it because normally you wouldn't bring the stuff out, but you would make a game of it to where you would always be like rotating your guns out and you would be like, all right, pick a number or whatever. You'd play with like this, and that. And it would just be a game for you. But if people didn't do that, and let's be honest, 99.9% of people aren't going to do that. Yeah. You just had stuff that sat around because you always wanted to use what was most powerful.
Absolutely. Well, and I still use DIM. Destiny Item Manager has a random loadout feature. I've already started to use it in the Crucible. And it's like which you said, I think not a lot of people use it because, especially in Destiny 1, when like right now, one of the best quality of life changes that we got in D2 was that you don't have to have your best gear equipped to get the best drop. You can be in your inventory and it'll just automatically figure it out. So what I do is I've got my highest light gear, in my inventory just in case, so that if I get a drop, it's going to be attuned to my level. But then I can run anything. I don't have to worry about it, and I love that. And like you said, the reality is that even when I would do that, I'd play Iron Banner. I'm like, oh man, an auto rifle dropped. And I was wearing, a dumb, blue. And now
I had it happen all the time.
Yeah. And it was like, it was worth the fun for me to play with those other guns, but I lost out on some of the loot. But now you don't have to make that concession or sacrifice. You could just run with anything. And I would agree with you. I think that that's a problem they solved, and it makes the game so much better. And it's something that it's so integral to the loot experience in Destiny 2 that I almost forget that it used to not be this way. But it's such a good change. And like you said, it just allows for so much more experimentation.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking forward to how this event plays out, but the way that they have set the table, I think it's going to be a success. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
If they can get people interested and to participate in it, then it should be a lot of fun. I'm interested. I know that I'm going to do it because I love Iron Banner. I've literally played every Iron Banner, so I'm ready for it to come back, but I'm interested if they're going to be able to entice the new player to play this that maybe doesn't care for or has not played a lot of the Crucible, because that's definitely a possibility. I'm interested to see if people do it. I just remember looking back when the first one came around. I was not a big Crucible player at that time. And the reason I dipped my toe into Iron Banner was because it had promises of power progression.
Yeah.
There was loot that you could get that could push you forward. And in fact, I escaped from Forever 29 by getting my level 30 boots from Iron Banner.
That was that the one in late November, early December? Right before
I think so. It was
because the first one only had level 28.
It was right. Yeah, I think this was before.
The refresh.
The Dark Below.
Yeah. I grinded the crap out of that too for the same reason. I didn't like PvP, and there were two things that salvaged my experience and allowed me to start enjoying PvP. It was that stupid Thorn quest, and it was Iron Banner.
Same for me. Same for me. It made me do it because I wanted the loot so bad, and that's my case in point. Is I'm curious, is the carrot sufficient to bring those players in that wouldn't normally play this activity? I mean, the armor looks great. Don't get me wrong. And maybe there's going to be some great guns and there's promise of rewards. But if it was me 3 years ago looking at what this has, if I go in and I have a bad experience in the first 5 games, I'd be done for the week. So I'm curious how this plays out. I don't want to cast negativity on it. It's just, that's it's kind of what I'm thinking about when I'm curious to see how it goes.
I think the big key with something they've set up that I think a lot of people kind of bypass is that the milestones, because they're the way that they're organized, right? You don't have a giant mess of bounties. You don't have a giant mess of quests. There's no quest subscreen. There is one place that you can look at your weekly stuff, and it's that milestones page. And the fact that they say there will be daily and season milestones, I'm picturing that, and I could be wrong on this, but I picture it like Faction Rally. When you went into that tab in your Faction Rally, you had a daily quest, and if you did like, you know, lost sectors in the EDZ or public
so it'd be
events,
like the challenges.
Yeah, and
so
maybe
we'll
the challenge will give you specific tokens, like a crap ton of tokens for Iron Banner for doing that. And it might be like get X number of kills or complete 3 matches or whatever. And then there will be a milestone, looks like, that will be there for the week. I think if they do that, that leverages what is essentially our only quest subscreen, and that really incentivizes us to do those activities. You know, I think you see those activities in the milestones and you're like, I got to do those things. And I think there's a subconscious thing that may pull players in just via that to know I can get powerful gear from these activities.
That's a strong possibility.
I'm hoping that's the case.
Essentially, the reality is that what those are is just a different way of presenting bounties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that
used
it's
to
awesome.
exist.
It's such a
They're
good
just
switch.
Automatic. It's as opposed to picking stuff up and controlling it like an inventory, which is really clunky, and they always had to form workarounds. It just puts it there. It puts it right in the UI. It presents it when the thing is available, and it lays it out nicely for you. And it's going to function the same way. Like, we'll have daily bounties and we'll have weekly bounties, only they're called challenges and milestones, and they're just there and you don't have to manage them. Yep. Which I think is a great way to streamline it. It makes it way more clear for the player what they can do to progress or to get something new. And I think that the system has been a great streamline of the goals that they have for how they want players to feel rewarded.
Yeah. Do you remember when we had to delete bounties to pick up the Iron Banner bounties each week?
Yes.
I know I did.
You remember when we had, like, was it Destiny 1, like, vanilla?
We had
Maybe
5
we had
slots.
6.
We had 5.
Was it 5?
It started with 5.
And if you had an exotic bounty, you were screwed.
But that was before the days of Iron Banner bounties. And that was also in the days.
Yeah.
I will never forget this. The first time I went into Crucible, I picked up all the Crucible bounties, because I did all the PvE bounties every day, because you had to use them because you needed to level your subclass, because it took forever to level your subclass. Yeah. So you did the bounties every day. I grabbed the PvP bounties and I was like, okay, we'll see how hard these are. And the first one that I picked up was get 10 Buckshot Bruiser medals, which if you don't know, Buckshot Bruiser is a medal for getting 3 shotgun kills without reloading or dying.
Yeah.
And I got my first one and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And they were all like that. Like the bounties for PvP were miserable at launch.
They were hard.
Yeah. And then even by the end though, like when we had those, we had 16 bounty slots, but we had all those bounties for like get kills with a scout rifle and get kills with, get kills in control. So you'd grab like the 10 Crucible bounties for the week. And then you'd have like 4 spaces for that. And you're like, crap, where do I put the other bounties? Like even when they had the bounty system, like I felt like I was missing out because I had
you were always having to choose.
Exactly. And
if there would always be a time when you know that you probably did an activity that had a bounty appropriate for it, but you missed because you were holding strike bounties that you hadn't completed yet. Maybe you were holding Crucible bounties you hadn't completed yet. Overall, like, and I don't want to like totally trash Destiny 1, but the system wasn't great.
No, it was still fun.
What they've done, and
we had a good time when we did them, but like this is a way better system.
What they've done in Destiny 2 is, it's just if you don't know how Destiny 1, like you don't know how good you have it now.
It's really, really good.
Yeah. Man, and I had a thread I was gonna bring up when you were talking, and I forgot what it was, but
well, we are awash in nostalgia for Destiny 1 and the lovely QOL changes.
So Iron Banner, that's going to be happening. Highly encourage that you get in there and play. It's going to be a lot of fun if you decide that you can make it fun. Consider it a social experience. That's how I feel about it.
Absolutely.
And I'm interested to see what these seasonal milestones are going to be. And we'll talk about seasons in a minute. But first up, they finally dated the Prestige, finally confirmed the Prestige version of the raid, the Leviathan raid. And initially this was dated to drop this reset, being the 10th. And I was, to be completely honest, really disappointed because, as I stated, I really like Iron Banner. I usually play it like almost all week. Outside of doing like the normal weekly stuff. And I was like, man, they're going to throw the first Iron Banner and the Prestige raid at us in 1 week. God, like, how am I going to do all this? I know I was going to miss out on something. But luckily,
yay for bugs.
There's a bug there in this. I'm 99% sure this is due to a, quote unquote cheese that was discovered in the Callus encounter. And I won't get into the details on that because I don't want to spoil it for you, Joe.
Oh, I appreciate it.
There was a cheese, and I think that that was finally communicated, or they found that. And so now they pushed back the Prestige raid to Wednesday, October 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific. So that bought me a week and a day, which I'm very happy with. Now next week I can focus on, tackling the Prestige raid with all my fun raid buddies and enjoy Iron Banner to the fullest this week.
Yeah, and what they said about the Prestige raid, I think sounds interesting. They said there are minimal mechanical changes, but it is a more punishing sandbox.
I was very surprised about that.
I'm not really that surprised, but I think it's going to be interesting. One of the other things I think that is really key to this, that it ties into our discussion that we're going to have later about Endgame, is they said that the Prestige activity is not about character progression, but it provides unique rewards to help you shine. And I think that really sums up what Prestige activities are all about. And it's this idea that,
like literally the term prestige.
This is for when you hit 305 and you're ready to really take on a challenge.
Yeah. I think they're communicating pretty clearly with the name of the and they don't just arbitrarily change. This stuff used to be called heroic. And there had to be an impetus, a reason why they would change that name to Prestige. And I think that says it all now, that it is now more about, the journey and the conquering of that activity. And I don't know if they did say, but I think a lot of people are assuming that there's going to be an aura that you can pick up off of this.
Yeah.
That seems to be the case with, I guess, these top tier activities of Prestige Nightfall, of course, going flawless. I wouldn't be surprised if this provided a aura as well.
Oh, going flawless gives you an aura? I didn't realize that.
That's the word. I don't have.
I'm a scrub lord at trials, but yeah.
Yeah.
Have you done the Nightfall Prestige yet?
I have done it once. Yeah, I have.
I've only attempted
it 1 week. Yeah,
it is hard.
Very challenging.
It's freaking hard.
And I think a lot of people are pleased with the level of difficulty because I can't remember how many times we talked about in Destiny 1 how we would like a even higher level of difficulty. And the Nightfall on its own can be challenging. Mm-hmm. But to give us a bump up in that difficulty level, I was pleased to see that.
Yeah. And it's just a little cosmetic bonus that you get, but man, you feel like the proudest person, man. You go into the tower and you're like, freaking look at my aura because I did this thing. It's awesome.
It's that same feeling from Destiny 1. So, vanilla Destiny, the Nightfall, not to say Nightfalls now are hard, but they were tough.
They're brutal.
They were punishing. And, your power level was very relevant. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time, I mean, you were in a minority if you were level 30. Mm-hmm. And so, tackling that and then coming out with that aura.
And if you die, you went to orbit
on your head.
You had to restart the whole thing. And everybody just sat in the back with Icebreaker. And so if you died, we're not talking about like 20 minutes. We're talking about like an hour. At the beginning, especially.
You're talking about just hunkering down, because if everybody dies, you're done. It's a wash.
And there was
you lost
no respawn.
That time. You got to start over.
There was no timer that let you respawn after a certain time. You had to be revived.
Yeah.
So it was rough, man. But I love, the Nightfall is my favorite activity in D2. Nothing's even close. I absolutely love the Nightfall. And the Prestige Nightfall, I did it this week. And I'm so happy about it.
How is that on Prestige? I did not attempt that.
It is tough. It is really good.
Yeah.
I'll get this in my reset, but I took it upon myself this week. So I mentioned the Nightfall is my favorite activity. And I was like, I'm gonna Sherpa people through the Nightfall because I can't Sherpa people through trials. I haven't even finished the raid with my team yet because we're still doing it blind and we've had some people with scheduling conflicts and stuff. And I've never been a huge raider anyway, but I was like, I can Sherpa people through the Nightfall. That's totally, that will be my thing, that I'll really focus on for this week. And so I did the Nightfall 14 times. And after about 10 of those, I really started looking for a team of guys I play with normally to do the Prestige Nightfall. But I knew where all the spawns were. I knew where all the anomalies were. I knew where all the ads were. And I had really honed my loadout to this is my loadout. This is my play style. And we beat it with a minute and a half to spare, I think.
Nice.
So we did good, but it was hard. And I loved the challenge. It was, you really do have to know all those things in order to make it work. You have to know where all the anomalies are. You have to know where all the ads are going to spawn, and you have to do it mechanically. And it's awesome. I love the Prestige Nightfall.
Yeah, I think that they did a great job with that, and I'm happy with that activity.
So the Prestige raid, more of the same. If you are a big raider, I think this is going to be big. Are you going to do this on the first night, Cyborg?
I'll certainly attempt it that night. I'm not going to race like I tried to do for the release of the raid, but I am looking forward to this. Doing the heroic raids or the prestige raid now has always been a big highlight for me because it puts you to the test. I think once you know the raid, then it becomes a question of, all right, when the heroic raid comes up or now the prestige raid, all right, how good is your team? How prepared are you? Can you tackle these new challenges? And, in the past, it's been very there was always a bump in the sandbox difficulty. Typically, I guess 10, 20, 30 light points difference. Mm-hmm. But it seems now the mechanical changes aren't going to be as as important. They do say there are going to be some. So I'm curious, you know, how punishing is the sandbox going to be? You know, like what can we expect here? And I'm ready to tackle it though. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think that I really love this design decision to make it not about character progression, because I will say that like in D1, I loved all the loot that you got with raids, and I was totally fine with the idea of having certain loot kind of hidden behind that heroic raid thing. But once I had kind of beaten it, like I didn't want to run the heroic raid. I wanted to run the normal raid because I wanted to get people through, or I wanted it to be not a, you know, I didn't want to risk a 6-hour, you know, failed raid encounter, which you got sometimes depending on your group, you know, but that's what everybody wanted to do because that's where the prestigious loot was. I like that the prestige here is not in the loot. It's in the, like, just a cosmetic bonus. It's in the challenge. It's in, like you said, the journey that it takes to get your team good enough to do it. And there'll probably be a cool emblem that you'll get with a marker of how many times you beat the raid, if it's similar to what Trials is or the Nightfall, because both of those award. Yeah,
that's a good point.
And that's a way you could wear that and be like, dude, I'm an awesome raider. Check this out. I got 10, 15, 20, 30 completions of the raid. And you can wear that as a symbol of, you know, that demonstration of how awesome you are.
Yeah, I think I'm a little torn on. So we don't technically know what these rewards are going to be yet. We do know, based on some stuff that was data mined, that it appeared the armor sets were essentially the same, but reskin, recolored. That was a little bit of a disappointment to me, if that's true. Now, it's totally possible.
I think it's normal
that
right?
those were placeholders.
That's what they normally do with the hard mode raid, right? It's just different colors. That's what it was for King's Fall.
The armor would typically be different, like a different color scheme. Sometimes some differences, but not major differences, which that's okay. But I think for a raid where it's not as rewarding progressionally, if that makes sense. Like you're not getting enough rewards for it to make you progress in your power. If everything is vanity, I want there to be more distinction, but I want to wait and see what actually you're getting.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, even the emblem is speculation, but I think it's a pretty good call, pretty safe bet that will be there. But we don't know yet, and it'll be interesting to see what they give us for that stuff. Well, what they give you for that stuff, because I'm not going in. So.
You'll tackle it eventually.
Yeah,
you'll get the itch.
We got time. It's good.
We got time. We got till speculative at least December, right? So
yeah,
there's time.
I didn't even set foot in the Vault of Glass until late November. In D1.
Yeah, it took me a while, and I mean, Destiny 1. I want to say it was around the same time for me. Yeah,
we'll get there.
All right, so we mentioned seasons, and this is a word that we've heard several times, specifically so far with clans. But they're finally bringing up the importance of that word, because they, being Bungie, is going to be at TwitchCon, and they're going to be talking about the seasons of Destiny. And I'm going to read off what I guess their topic points are. They say, what do seasons mean in Destiny 2? What will change from season to season? How many seasons can we expect? And when does season 2 begin? So that's going to be Friday, October 20th, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, in what is called the Cool Cat Theater on the Cool Cat channel, which obviously these are like the different venues at TwitchCon, and so you know which channel to tune into. So it's going to be streamed, and I would encourage people to check this out. I'm very interested in this concept of seasons. My best guess, I'm interested to see what you think, Joe, but in Destiny 1, we had periods where, old gear would be phased out, new gear would roll in. That would change with power level, cosmetics. Iron Banner from year to year between expansions would have, new stuff come in. And I guess my rationality or way of thinking about this is how they're going to define loot pools. So, over this season, this stuff is available. And when it ends, the new stuff comes in, that stuff goes away. I don't know that I'm interested to see if, as we progress through Destiny 2, if they keep the inventory that you have relevant on a power level scale. Because that's something that a lot of players wanted in Destiny 2, where your gear could come with you. Well, and
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you look at the infuse tab on your gun, it tells you those can be infused up to 350.
Up to 350.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious, where does 350 end for us? Is that where they're pushing the second DLC to end? That would make sense to me.
That's what I'm assuming.
That DLC 1, maybe 325, DLC 2, 350.
That's exactly what I anticipate.
That's totally what I expect Season 1 to consist of. But it remains to be seen, and this is all total speculation on my part. But I'm eager to see what these definitions mean to them. And I think it'll be a great way of setting up players to know like what to expect and what the season thing means and how it'll impact the way that you play. So look forward to that.
Yeah, me too. I'm curious to see what they'll do with it. I don't think they'll take like guns specifically. I don't think those will go out of the loot pool. And the reason's because they've worked so hard to make them static rolls and free to have like some kind of crazy advantage over somebody in PvP particularly, that I don't think that they would make guns inaccessible. But I could be wrong.
That should make it easier to bring them forward, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because they can balance the sandbox.
Yeah, and so I think that they bring them forward. What they might do, like I don't know, I could spitball all day for what they could potentially do, but I think it'd be cool to see them with a new season bring in new stuff to add to the loot pool and then just weight it more heavily. Maybe keep all those old things and just relegate them to the gunsmith, which has everything, and then take those out of the rotation for like the legendary engrams, or maybe they'll leave them in the legendary engrams and just add them and weight them more heavily. I don't know. I think if they had loot,
another way
awesome.
it could be keep those things relevant is for them to build new roles.
I didn't even think about that
in another season. So
now that would be amazing.
Antiope would stick around, and all your favorite guns would stick around, but in new configurations.
See, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that.
So
we'll see what they do.
Possibility,
but we'll find out on the 20th. But man, there could be some great things, and it could be something. And honestly, like it could be something as stripped down and simple as the season ends when the new DLC comes out. You'll get a special emblem, and you'll get and that's it. It could be that. And it could just be there'll be new perks on your clan staves to earn. And there you go. Like, it could be as simple as that. So before we get way too ahead of ourselves, but man, it would be awesome if that season concept becomes something that gives it that extra longevity that either changes up the roles or that gives us new gear. We'll see. But,
and I think it's smart of them if they're going to delineate a name for certain chunks of time, because it makes it easy for you in discussion even to say, in season 1 we had XYZ, now in season 3, blah, blah, blah. And what we would talk about in Destiny 1 was, the Taken King period, in the Rise of Iron period. This will help us kind of define these time periods of Destiny as they progress and what they mean. And, so I think it's a smart nomenclature that they're adopting. So, but we need to see what it totally defines.
And ultimately, this might be something where seasons as a framework is added into Destiny 2, and the game is built around that, but it doesn't really see its full potential realized until like Destiny 3 or the next major DLC, like a year from now or 2 years from now, or whatever it is, Like, it could be that we just that it doesn't have a lot of features now, but the fact that it exists I think is at least a promise of what we're talking about here. That it could be something really special to designate the work that you put in during a certain period of time.
I think that one thing that we've seen them do well in Destiny 2 was them looking at the design decisions that were made in Destiny 1 and stripping those down to its core of what is this choice? What does it mean for the player? What does it define? And how do we preserve what's good about it and make it a better experience? How do we take this feature or this design choice and bring it forward, but in a way that's not complicated, that kind of clears up some of the BS about how to use it or how to use it to progress or whatever it is, and just make it accessible. And I think, like we've mentioned a handful of things, not having to wear your best light gear to get relevant power drops, not having to carry bounties. Like we were talking before the show about quality of life stuff, and they did some really high quality of life changes in Destiny 2 that lay the groundwork for a better game moving forward. It simplified a lot of systems that makes the game more accessible, both for a new player, but also for us as longtime players, where there were all these things that we kind of had to deal with, that were part of the game, that we just kind of, we said, all right, this is how you play and this is what you do. And now it's a lot more focused on just the playing of the game rather than the managing of the game.
Yeah. And there was a charm to it back at that time.
There was,
but I think
there was an RPG-ish, management charm to it. But then at a point it would become a hindrance.
Absolutely.
It would become a boundary.
It becomes, it grates on you, and there's a reason they had to keep adding and bolting on systems and adding more bounties. And like the reason they had to do that is because it was not a great system, but we made do with it. We enjoyed it for what it was. We played it at the time and it was useful. But by the end of it, we were ready to move on to something better. And we got it with Destiny 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I even see, people have brought up, things that didn't come forward, one of them that have been a suggestion for, okay, here's what I would love to see in Destiny 2. One of them was, the record books. And I'm even interested to see how these seasons and the maybe rewards attached to those seasons will replace record books.
I didn't even think about that.
Because if they're tracking everything you do across a season, we already know with the clans, like your clan stave, you earn certain ones by progressing through a season, as I understand how they've explained it. So if you're taking part in a season, maybe we can expect at the end of the season, like you said, maybe you get an emblem, maybe you get XYZ. Those are a function that it works just like the record book worked, where you would get this thing and it would say, okay, you do all these things, you get these rewards. And if the game is actively tracking all that stuff already, when the season ends, you earn those rewards, the same thing happened.
Yeah,
right?
It may
you
be
just didn't have to have this clunky UI interface to tell you how it goes.
Yeah, and that may end up, showing itself in a very small way at the start, but growing as we go. I think that it provides a framework, I think is what you're saying. I think that you're absolutely right about is it gives us something that we didn't have before, a streamlined and effective way of tracking what we have that is a significantly better improvement on record books in terms of just its usability. And maybe they end up using
what
seasons.
is its function?
Yeah, the function is the same thing, but maybe it starts off really simple and then grows as time goes. Which would be great, and we'll see kind of how that all shakes out.
And I don't want to, I don't want to mislead anybody and like build too much meaning on this one concept, but just looking at Destiny 2 as I've tried to do, the best I can as a fresh slate, looking at the design choices they've made, I'm trying to peer into the future and see the potential for what the game can become as they build depth into it as they build DLC and as they roll out live events and all the possibilities that are there. You know, maybe these things don't come to pass, and maybe we're looking too much into it. So don't get your hopes too high because of old Cyborg. But I'm trying very hard to be as positive as I can about the potential for what Destiny 2 could be, because in some ways it didn't serve up exactly what I wanted, but I see a ton of potential, and there's a lot of things they did really, really well for me. But we're going to talk about that further in the show here. But let's finish getting through this news.
Yeah, definitely. Here, I'll take the next part. The final note at the end, which stirred up a bit of controversy, was Deej left us a personal note at the end of the TWAB, and I'll just read it for you. It says, "On a personal note, just the other night, after we caught up in the Crucible, I had dinner with a dude I met as my teammate in a Bungie game 11 years ago. I am a product of the Bungie community. My challenge to every Guardian is to look to the human element in Destiny 2 to fuel your appetite for ultimate replayability. The ultimate loot is the friendships that can grow out of a game like this. There will be more gear to add to your character next week even. The rewards that I'm talking about, though, are the people in this community that thrives in this game. If you let them, they'll make your hobby as a light-dealing hero on a Starside campaign for glory even better. Thanks to those of you who are helping us drive that scene, Deej out." So that was his note at the end of the TWAB, and immediately there were posts on Reddit saying, "We're going to rename the end game the friend game." And I don't know, what did you think about this when you read it, Cyborg?
So when I read it, first off, I'm reading the first paragraph and I see, oh, okay, wait, he's got like a couple paragraphs here. What's he about to say? This has got to be important. And then he kind of got into a personal anecdote, and I thought it was really nice. I thought it was a nice anecdote he provided that gave, his take on some of the things that he's gotten out of being a part of Bungie and being a Destiny player. And it was relatable for me. It hit home for me. I've, over the years, said so many times, the thing that delineates, that distinguishes this game from any other is its ability to provide a social platform. And I've made so many friends in this game, and lifelong friendships that are always going to be there. And so when he wrote what he wrote, I was like, that's great. I totally hear you. You're absolutely right. Like, if you let it, this can be a great experience that creates and maintains friendships. So I thought it was great. I didn't take any, people just went too far with it. And I think it's the usual obnoxiousness of the internet, and you can generalize it the best that you can. It comes down to individuals that want to be trolls, or they want to be negative and say like, oh, Bungie is saying that the end game is your friends. Like, it's not at all what he said. And I'm sad because this is not the first time that Deej has been ripped because he put something personal in the TWAB or in the Bungie Weekly Update. I mean, this has happened a number of times over the years. And I'm surprised still at this point that he persists in doing this, knowing that at any time, whatever he can say can be picked apart, and he can get, for lack of a better term, crucified for making a personal connection in his writing. And that's why they hired Deej. They hired Deej because he spent years maintaining TTL and writing blogs and connecting with the people in his community. It's what he is best at. And so this is his strength. And the fact that he's doing what he does best in trying to connect with people and helping other people connect, and he gets, just lambasted for it, is really disappointing to me.
Yeah, and I think you're right that there's a vocal minority of people who didn't appreciate what he said, or who, I think there were a lot of people that heard it secondhand.
I think they chose not to
Yeah. Well, and
connect
like,
with the message.
A good example, though, I think of what happens a lot of times is exactly how Dado responded to this. I don't know if you saw this, but Dado's response when presented with this is somebody came into his chat while he was streaming and said, "Hey, did you hear about what Deej said? You know, that basically the end game is about making friends." And Dado is like, "This is how I feel about it." And he gave like the most like long and exaggerated eye roll that he possibly could. And he came back later and he basically like said, "Hey, my statement for that, when I understood it with better context, because it wasn't presented to me as this is a personal note from Deej, it was presented to me as this is what Bungie says Endgame is now." And he said, "I was not trying to belittle Deej. I was not trying to, you know, it's obviously his thing. I don't want to make it look like he's the bad guy in this case." And I think that Data's a great example for what happens to a lot of us. Sometimes we get this secondhand from our friends and we get a misunderstanding about what's said.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, kudos to Dado for going out and clearing the air. And like Dado still has tons of problems with the end game. Like he still has a lot of criticisms for the game, many of which are like really good, well thought out criticisms. But I think that he recognized the fact that this is Deej's personal note here, and he's right about it. Like the reality is that this is what Derp Fam is. This is why Derp Fam exists. You know, we fundamentally agree with this concept that the relationships that you build in this game can be incredible, and they can really define an era of your life, are these people that have now stepped into it. And I think that Data would definitely say that, because I mean, one of the things he talked about, I think after this, was he talked about how math class exists because of Destiny, you know, his clan. And I think that really, I think that's a great example though for how some people have interpreted what Deej just said and kind of ran with it in the wrong direction. His follow-up tweet was just, he said, "My personal note at the end of the TWAB was a thank you to all the people who make this game great for each other. That is all. Peace." And so I appreciate that Deej is still, like you mentioned, Cyborg, willing to be vulnerable with us and share what he really thinks. Somebody posted on Reddit right afterwards, "This is why game developers are not, they're not honest, or they're not genuine, a lot of times, and they just give you the PR speech." Because when they don't, sometimes people from the community can take it in a way that was different than intended, and they can become very upset about it. And like we've said before, you know, and like, you know, Dado said, that doesn't mean that there aren't problems with the end game in a lot of people's eyes. We'll talk about that in our main topic here in about a minute. But I think this tweet though, or this personal note was, I think, hopefully something that causes us to remember the fact that there is something beautiful and wonderful about the friendships that we do make in this game and the opportunity we have to develop those. So I appreciated it for sure. I was taken aback by some of the negative response. Not everybody was negative, but some of the negative response.
I was most disappointed in an article that I saw Game Rant post. In the title of the article, I'm even trying to find it now. I almost think that they might have taken it down because it's not on their Twitter anymore. But the title of the article was, "Bungie says the in-game loot is your friends." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, you know, that's so far out of context. It's such a clickbaity title, and things like that only reinforce the problem with people's reactions when they don't take things in context, when they don't decide to take, you know, an antidote for what it is.
Yeah.
Deej is not the quote unquote Bungie official spokesperson. He's the community manager. His job is to communicate things that Bungie asks him to communicate to the players and vice versa. There is no Bungie spokesperson. I guess you could consider Deej a version of that at best, but it's not like what he says is the Bungie official statement on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think you and I both feel a little bit sad about how it all ended up. But at the same time, you know, thankful that Deej was willing to share that with us. And I think he's right. And I think it should cause each of us to kind of just take a step back and appreciate it. So I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents on it. Figured we talk about it at least because it was a big topic in the community, in some portions of the community this week. And figured it was worth at least mentioning.
Just take a chill pill, people.
Yeah, seriously, just enjoy yourself. This is a fun video game. I don't know if you know this. Destiny 2 is a fun video game.
If you're listening to this podcast, you believe that. I don't care what you say. Yeah. You care enough because it's fun.
Oh man!
But that was this week at Bungie. There was, I guess, one other piece of news that came up across Twitter today, that there is going to be another new PvP map called Distant Shore, and that's going to be introduced in the Iron Banner playlist this week and will be available afterward. What's most interesting about this is that the images provided looks very much like a version of Shores of Time, but placed on Nessus.
Yeah, I think that's so cool if they did that. We'll see what the map ends up looking like, but I think that's such a cool idea to do, especially with, you could tie that in with the lore with how the Vex are recreating these planets, and Venus was one that they were trying to take over and transform into a machine world.
Right.
So I like the idea, even on a lore side. And I'm sure that lore guys are probably ripping their hair out at me saying, no, that's not how it works. But I think it's kind of a cool idea. The Vex are transforming stuff into machines. It'd be really, really cool to see them transform this location in a similar manner as the one we had on Venus. So I think it's cool. I can't wait to play it. To me. It'll be fun.
Yeah. And nothing wrong with another new map. I mean,
serious. What are we going to do? Complain about a new map? Hope not.
Let's complain about a new map. I don't care if it's a reskin. I mean, point taken. True Vanguard was like, I don't get why people are complaining about this when games like Call of Duty and Gears of War and etc. like do this every single year and bring back maps and rework them.
And a lot of times charge you for them.
How many versions of Nuketown have there been? Mm-hmm. I couldn't even tell you at this point. Like, I have no problem with it. All right. So that was the news this week. It was a long hour of news. Thanks for sticking around with us on that. But Joe, let me ask you, man, how was your reset?
My reset was incredible. Thanks for asking, man. I mentioned this before, but I beat the Nightfall 14 times, including the Prestige Nightfall for my first time. So I was super excited about that. I love the Nightfall. I also hit 305 on my first character. And I also hit 300 on characters 4 and 5. So now I have 5 characters that are 300 plus.
Nice.
I am leveling my 6th character. If I wasn't on the podcast right now, I would be in the other room.
That's where you'd be, right?
I would be getting to level 20 on my PlayStation so I can play.
So are you doing 3 on Xbox, 3 on PlayStation?
Yeah, right now. That's what I've got. Okay. So I also played Trials and didn't hate it. Kind of surprised about that, honestly. Have you played Trials much, Cyborg? So
I've played a couple weekends. I think this is the first weekend that Survival has actually been up for Trials. Mm-hmm. And I was a bit hesitant in getting in because I am not a huge fan of Survival in its current state, and I was not too keen on playing a whole Trials card's worth of Survival matches. Mm-hmm. But I did play, and I had kind of mixed results. I think that there are certainly strategies to overcome some of what we were facing. But I think the high point was we started out, playing what classes we wanted, and we were attempting some certain strategies that weren't really panning out. So we decided, all right, let's almost all of us switch to Titans and let's just push like it's nobody's business, right? Let's play hyper aggressive, because that's pretty much the only counter to the, if you want to call it meta, which is to sit back in lanes and camp with Mida. Our answer to that was we're going to push with Striker Titans and just go nuts on people, and they're going to have to deal with it. And we did that, and immediately landslide won 2 or 3 games, I think.
So that's interesting you say the Mida camping, because we didn't run into that almost at all in our games.
It was not terrible until our last game that we ended up playing. We ran across a team, and I think it was 3 warlocks and maybe a hunter or a titan. And their strategy was to camp in one of the back rooms, throw down a bunch of rifts with arc buddies, and literally all just sit with one lane with scout rifles and just team shot and just clear you out. Like, you didn't have a chance because they all had overshields. They were all team shotting with scout rifles. And so anywhere that you could see them, almost all the players would be looking right at you and they would just pick you off. And the problem with that is, okay, fine, if that's strategy, but all they had to do was get 1 kill. And if you could not clear out that room and they held fast in there the entire round, they would win. Because the way that the rounds work now is if it runs out of time, whoever has the most lives remaining wins the round. It's not just based on the point. And I think that that can be a flaw with the game type. In my consideration, because it encourages that type of play. There is an absolute reward for sitting back, and if you can have the numbers work for you, you don't have to go anywhere. And that's something that in Trials in Destiny 1 in Elimination, in the end, even if you played that way, if you didn't force a conflict or confrontation, you still had to get out there and get into the fight at the end because there would be a cap to point. And that was the alternative. And they've taken that away now. And it was very, very frustrating.
Yeah. I think that's a fair criticism of the game mode. I honestly really like survival. I like not being dead immediately and then just being done for that round. I think that they could probably take all of the competitive modes and reduce the amount of games you need to win by 1 because it's really long. But I like survival, and I've like almost never run into people camping unless it's like in the last minute of the game, which I understand. Like if you've played for 3-4 minutes and like taken it to the other team and you're winning, like. And it's been a good back and forth.
Yeah, you want to hold your advantage.
You hold your advantage. Like, I think that's totally legit. But like playing for that at the beginning, I think is boring. And I think everybody thinks it's boring, which is why I haven't really come across it. So yeah, I was really happy with it. I was more happy with Trials this time around because it features the random matchmaking, right? So you're playing against a random. So one game we played against people that had literally 50 plus Trials wins on their Trials. Special emblem. And the next time, we played against guys that literally had a bunch of raid weapons on and we just crushed them, So it was kind of unpredictable. And when I got my mentality around it right, that we could learn it and figure it out, like it got way better. And the competitive matches were awesome. And we really didn't run into anybody that was like camping. Like honestly, the teams that destroyed us weren't camping. They were rushing. The teams that were like way better than us just attacked us relentlessly.
I think the most effective strategy I saw was teams that were very good at flanking.
Yeah, teams that they coordinated. Like they learned how to attack the same point and attack it in unison. And those were the teams that like you just couldn't stop them. Like because and they came to you. Like they would just rip you to pieces. They were so good. And I think that that's one of the things that I liked about Trials. Because even when I saw a team like that, I thought that is a thing of beauty. Like the coordination and the attacking together, that is a thing of beauty. And we can learn that. If we could figure it out, like that's something we could try to do. Whereas like with Elimination, I never felt that way. Like I always felt like it was slow. I always felt like you got killed once and you're out of the action. I felt like there wasn't really room to improve because that guy just had a better snipe shot or he got to this position in the map or what, like I didn't like it a ton. I know a lot of people loved Elimination. I never did. I think this is way better for Trials. I played Countdown last week and enjoyed it a little bit more too because of the loot. And that's even way better. I think the loot is significantly better than it's ever been. But I like the way they have it set up because, like I said, it's so much about the team fights. more than anything else.
I think that I think survival has some merits. I mean, I don't hate the game type as a whole. It, like you somewhat said, I think it just plays long.
It does.
And I think that's part of my complaint, is that it plays so long that I got weary playing over the course of a card because it took so long to progress. And the downside of that is if you play, let's say you play 6 survival matches and you win, which is that's a serious time investment. Like,
it really
you're talking
is.
2 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't win that 7th one, it's going to be an even bigger blow, because you'll be lucky if you've got enough time to do another card. And at that point, you played pretty hard for several hours and you're not going to be fresh. And so I think that's part of where its weakness lies. I think that, like you said, it's a great change to this type of game type, if we want to call it like an elimination style game type, that you get to get back into the game quickly. Mm-hmm. I enjoy that as well.
And you can adjust.
It's completely
right on the fly. It's really nice.
Yeah. It completely solves the old problem in elimination of having to deal with, reses and, trying to res your friends or getting res sniped. Like, that whole dynamic was just really weird in elimination to me. Mm-hmm. So you've got a little bit of a spawn timer, but you get to get back in the game. And I think that's great. I think the best thing they could probably do to make this game type better for me would be to make the round a little bit shorter and to reduce the number of lives available. I think that the games would resolve quicker if maybe they eliminated, 4 revive tokens, or whatever you would call it, mm-hmm. for each team, so that you had a more limited number of spawns. It'll make the stakes a little higher, but decrease the amount of time on the round, so there is more of a time pressure mechanic. So it will somewhat discourage people from just sitting back and camping. Mm-hmm. And then remove that, or somehow change the end of round mechanic that depends on the number of lives. I think it would make it more interesting if it totally depended on capping a point, because then it would provide you an opportunity to come back and to throw around even if you were down.
Yeah. Well, the way it works right now as well is if let's say you're at 0 lives remaining, each of you, and it's 1 on 3, it still goes to cap.
Yeah.
So I think that's at least good. I do really like survival, even as it is now. The only thing that I would say is something that you mentioned as well: reduce the number of wins you have to have. Give us 3 wins. Let us get out of there and be done. Because it does drag on, for sure.
Yeah. But either way, I think the game type needs more time, and I think people need more time to play it, to adjust to it. It was the first weekend with trials, having that game type. I think people are kind of mixed on how they feel about it, because some of them had bad experiences, mm-hmm. Which, can happen. I mean, after that last game I mentioned, like, we didn't even come back. We're like, I can't play anymore tonight after that, because it was so depressing.
Well, that's fair. Like, we played, so the team I played with, we went 2 wins and 5 losses. And then I played with another group this morning, and I think we won once and lost 3. So, I'm definitely not winning a lot of matches. But it was really competitive. And I would say that for trials, it is really imperative. Play with people who are not going to get upset easily, and play with your friends. Like, because it'll make it a lot more fun. And I think that trials is going to be one of those activities that week to week you will get better. As you learn how to play together.
I agree.
I like the way that trials loot is handled as well. I mentioned this, but like, you guys probably already talked about this on previous shows, but the token system, the opening the social space at 1 win, it makes it accessible. I've always felt like just a complete failure in trials, because I needed to get to 7 wins to get a weapon or flawless. And I was not good, and I was not willing to put the time in to get to that level, because I was so far mm-hmm. behind it. And there were rare occasions where I was with a team that did well and brought me there, where I felt like I was starting to succeed and understand it, but then I'd just get destroyed the next week. and it killed my desire to want to improve and to play. I love the way the loot is set up, and it really is incentivizing me to learn it. And I really want to learn it.
I think what they did was really, really smart in giving, even at the first win, like allowing you to go see and to get a taste of the space, you know, see the vendor. Like it's kind of cool experience. It's kind of otherworldly. You know, it's definitely weird.
Oh, it's bizarre.
It's super weird. But in a cool way. And then the way that they did it, like even when you get to a next tier of wins, it's what, like 1, 3, 5, 7 and flawless. And they were even able to give that extra other place that you can't reach if you don't go flawless that I've seen. I haven't been there myself, but it's even more bizarre.
Yeah. It's really cool.
But they were able to provide that like level of uniqueness, even though they're providing access to players that can't get to that level.
Yeah.
You know?
And even the fact I got a really cool SMG from my run this morning, and I felt great. I felt great. I felt like I put in a couple hours. I learned something. I had a good time with my friends, and I got a gun. That's what I want. And Trials delivered, and I was not expecting it to. I was not expecting to like Trials, and it's starting to rope me in. It's starting to give me incentive to play, and I'm looking forward to trying to improve in future weeks. So I'm really happy with it. That's kind of the majority of my reset. Leveling new characters, doing all the weekly things. How was your reset, Cyborg?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a lot of the same. Like, obviously we're kind of into that point of Destiny where it's, kind of the weekly reset grind. You jump in, you complete all the activities you can so you can get the unique rewards. You can tackle that challenge for the week. Did some raids, had a couple raids. Those are going smoother. And I think we're even, we're getting people, I think almost every raid in the past couple weeks, we brought someone through who either hadn't completed the raid or hadn't even done it at all.
Yeah. That's
and
great.
It's still going pretty smooth. It's, if you don't have a full team that's completely fresh, you can get people through and explain encounters. And we had a guy who literally, we brought him and his brother was like, hey, my brother, he's never done the raid. He's never raided at all before. And we're like, all right, bring him in. We'll do it. And he executed every encounter. I was actually like really proud of the guy. I told him like, for your first raid ever, you did awesome. 'Cause he did everything we told him to do. And we got through the whole thing within a couple hours and it went successfully. I think that this raid is able to strike a very delicate balance that's hard to achieve in providing challenge, but also it's not so mechanically difficult that it's tough to teach people.
Agreed.
Or it's tough for people to learn.
Yeah, the 3 encounters I've done so far, I would agree wholeheartedly with that. And it's really fun. They're all very different too. The first 3 encounters, they're really cool. So that's awesome that you were able to guide them through and that you're having success bringing new people into the activity. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's something that like I am not super experienced with. I mean, I've always, had friends come in who hadn't done it or hadn't completed things and, brought them along with part of our team or whatever and helped people out to an extent. But I would say like for me, it's kind of a new experience trying to completely Sherpa or teach people. And I'm trying to learn good ways of doing that, but I think that the raid is a teachable raid and it's not at the level of say King's Fall. That was it was a slog.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like
100%. I agree
every encounter was very mechanically complicated. Like there's moving pieces in this raid, but it's easy to catch on to. And
you
I
usually
think
have
that's
a buddy.
good,
Usually have a buddy that's with you doing the same kind of thing, which I think makes it more learnable too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having people on your team that already can execute, that, provide like a solid, fire team member that those pieces are in place certainly makes it easier. It's a whole different thing than going in by myself and bringing 5 fresh players in. I'm nowhere near ready for that, but
I think one thing that it does for Sherpas as well, and I thought this about the last 2 raids, all right? You can't, in King's Fall specifically, your job requires you to be focused and directed toward one outcome. And you can't really look around and see what everybody else is doing very often. And I found that like when I started doing Sherpa runs, it's difficult because you have to just ask people, where were you standing? What were you doing? In VOG, you could just look and see where they were. In Crota, you can look and see where they are. You're not standing in the right spot. Move over 5 yards and you're out of the boomer fire. You know, move over here, stand in this spot. Okay, you're taking damage from the Templar. Stand behind this pillar. You know, you can do some of those small adjustments that help people to do their job correctly. And I felt like with King's Fall and with even in some places with Wrath, you can't see them. You don't know where they are. You don't know what they're doing. And you have to just assume they're doing, and maybe you've not explained it well. Maybe they just haven't understood what you're trying to communicate to them. Maybe you left out a detail. And you can leave somebody in a bad position where they just don't know how to do what they're supposed to do, or they can't execute. And you can't give them those little pointers to help. The nice thing about I've done like two runs of the first 3 encounters. And that was one of the best parts is we could say, hey, stick to this guy, or you're in the wrong position. I can see you're not in the right spot. You know, take a step this way, follow this guy. And I think it makes it much easier to Sherpa. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. And the encounter, I mean, there's definitely periods where, you know, you may not be able to see everything if you're not in a specific role or place, but a lot of the time you're more together than apart.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what I mean by that.
And so it's easier for people, you know, I would say like dogs especially.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, honestly.
the pleasure gardens especially is an activity that I've found once you have the mechanic down, if you've got 2 people that can handle the jewels or whatever you want to call them, pretty much you just tell them you need to be here and do this with this dog at this point. You give them the easiest place to do it. And then you just say, all right, follow me. You know, like,
well, and it's for our
easy
run,
to teach what you have to do.
Yeah, for our run, we had Thaden who, I mean, he loves stealth games. And so when we were trying to figure it out, he basically like tried to understand and have a visual diagram in his head of the map. And he knew how to navigate that thing so well. And so by the end of it, we were just telling everybody, just follow Thaden. Like, he knows where he's going. He knows what this looks like. He knows how to get to where we need to go. We numbered all the plants, and he could guide them through, and they could just kind of stick with him. And that was just really nice. And we knew that, like, if we do this again, we can bring new people in, and he knows that maze. You know, I couldn't do it like he did it, but he knows it. And I like that is there. Like you said, you're together, and you're you know, more than you are apart. And I think that's good.
Yeah. And some of the encounters are a little more calm and less chaotic. Gauntlet is fairly mechanical in its pacing, if that makes sense. I mean, it's
not chaotic.
You know, there's a constant rhythm, and the only chaos is when you're clearing ads, and that's a very normal activity.
Or if you shoot the wrong arrow.
Most people can handle. Yeah. I mean, there's that. I mean, mistakes can be made, but it is calm enough that a new player, their job is straightforward and it's directly in front of them most of the time. And it's not so chaotic and frantic that they have an opportunity to make a slip or an error because they just stood in the wrong place, or, you know what I mean? And it just makes it more manageable while still being fun. Like Gauntlet, in my opinion, is one of the most fun parts of the raid because it's just kind of chill. It's the mechanics. I find, especially in the raids, some of my most enjoyable parts of the raids are typically the ones that are kind of mechanically paced, because you get into a rhythm and you get to feel good about that. and it kind of is less stressful, but you still feel like you're achieving something. Very much similar to totems.
Yeah.
I always liked totems in King's Fall because it was very mechanical. You do this, you go back here, you do this, you kill the knight, you run, you go to the timer, you clear the ads, you know?
Yep.
Like there's a certain value to that I find kind of zen in the game, you know?
Definitely.
So, overall, so I did a couple raids, and then after getting my activities done on my Titan and Warlock, I got to create a hunter.
Ooh,
and I got him
you did it,
all
finally.
the way through. I did. Well, you know, I was talking with AER0KNIGHT a couple weeks ago on the show, and I was like, I don't know if I should create this third character or if maybe I need to mosey on to PlayStation and start a character there. And he was like, man, like PC's coming, just go create your third character. I was like, all right, you decided for me. So I got the time this week. I got my hunter all the way through the campaign, and he is at 301 light today.
That is awesome, dude. It's
not a ton of effort.
Fast. When your characters are so fast. I really like the way that they handled loot progression, because I feel like there's a grind to the progression. And we'll talk about this with Endgame. There's a grind to the progression. But they really did speed it up, and they incentivize you to have one of each character. And the characters are all interesting and fun.
Yeah, if you can plan for it, you can make it easier on yourself. Like,
Absolutely.
I knew I was going to make that character, so all the reputation tokens I was getting on the different planets during Faction Week and Vanguard and Crucible tokens and stuff, I banked all those to wait so that I could get packages for my hunter. So once he hit level 20... I put all my best blues on, and once I hit like 270, then I would just go to the vendors and just turn in tokens, get packages, put on gear, go to the next one. And literally within like an hour of doing that, I was in 290 plus territory and started getting more powerful stuff. So then I went and did the weekly milestone stuff with him, and basically went through all that stuff. And at the end of that, the only thing I didn't do this week was all the Crucible
Call to Arms.
Call to Arms. I hadn't had time to do all that yet. I think I did it on my Warlock,
which they made it way faster. I don't know if they did that last week or the week before.
It is.
Oh my goodness, it's so much better.
So much better. And I did one of them during trials. I completed.
Yeah, it's easy to get it done during trials. If you've already done it once on that character, you can access trials and just knock it out. It's great.
Yeah. So yeah, by the end of this reset, I was 301 with my hunter, and I probably would have raided with him too if I had the time. But now I can run all of them through Iron Banner and the raid next week and do all those things, 3 times, still get rewards, which is great. Had a fun reset. I mean,
good.
I mentioned it's kind of a routine that you do all these things, but if you have 3 characters, like there's plenty of stuff to do to keep you busy through the week. And I still am finding all of it fun. So I'm getting a ton of value out of doing those things. Now, if you play more than I do, like one of my friends I play with, he has more play time. Like he was done with everything he could do in the game by like Thursday,
Yep.
He could there's probably something he could go do, but he did all the things that were rewarding in 2 or 3 days. And he was like, all right, I guess I'll go play some other stuff for the rest of the week. I was like, all right, cool. Like that's not bad.
No,
you don't have to play it every single day, but, that's kind of different pacing than we've been used to in Destiny 1, where, you always had stuff to do and you always wanted stuff to do because we were addicted to the grind.
And it was a cruel mistress to us, but we were faithful.
Something that we loved to hate, right?
Yeah, 100%, man.
But this is a good transition into our topic this week that I thought would be great to talk with you about, which is unpacking a little bit of our thoughts on the end game of Destiny 2. The end game meaning what happens after you finish the campaign, after you've finished the quests and the adventures, and all the little PvE pop-ups that you can go and clear out. what happens after you finish those things? There's certain realm of activities that are available, and what do the rewards look like for those activities? What does your character progression look like? And how do we feel about all that? So that has been a very big topic, I would say, at least for the past, 2 to 3 weeks, as a lot of players have reached that.
Definitely.
So Joe, I want to give you the first opportunity to kind of give your thoughts on what the end game has meant to you.
Sure. And I want to start by, saying that I feel like, and I mentioned this to you beforehand, Cyborg, I love Destiny 2. And I love Destiny 2 without caveat, without an asterisk next to the I love Destiny 2. I love Destiny 2 without a, but I really wish they would blank. I love this game. And this game is really designed in a way that entices me to play it. And I'm having a blast. I know a lot of people are looking at the end game and it's not what they wanted. And my hope in sharing my thoughts is not to make somebody who wants something different out of the end game feel like I'm saying you shouldn't want what you want. Because it's fine that you want what you want. But I did want to at least give a voice to my enjoyment of the end game. I think that as I kind of understand how the end game functions, you have your campaign, you level up to 20, you do the story. Once you get to level 20, you now do these events kind of for everyone. And those are like the flashpoint, the call to arms. You can do those and get some legendary drops that are good. Your clan stuff. And then this is where I think the Iron Banner and Faction Rally fit in. And I think this is different than the way that it's been before. Like, these events are designed to get you up into 265. They give you just legendary vendor stuff, essentially, So you're not really going to progress much farther than that unless you then move into the end game. And I think the end game is very distinctly Trials, Raid, and the Nightfall on normal mode for Raid and Nightfall. And then I think they've added a new tier of difficulty at Prestige with Nightfall, Raid, and then the Flawless, which all have this cosmetic aura, bonus. And I think a lot of people, this is a different organization than we've seen before. The organization in the past was you did the story missions and then you grinded strikes and that got you up to the point that you had all legendary stuff. You got your Vanguard marks or whatever they were, legendary marks, and you turned those in for, you got a full set of legendary armor, full set of legendary guns, and then you were now ready to move into the end game. And once you did that, you were ready to do the Nightfall, you became ready ultimately to do the Raid and Trials, and Iron Banner was counted among those end game activities.
Yeah.
My position is I don't think it is. I think Faction Rally and Iron Banner are a different kind of event now. There's a PvE and a PvP event that are just these events for everybody. They're about leveling you up to 265 so that you can reach the end game. They're not really for progressing you farther than that, although they sometimes can. And likewise, the Prestige is also not about progression anymore. They're just about giving you this cosmetic boon. And I really like this direction for the game. I like it for several reasons. First, I feel like there are a lot of things that we can do in the game that enhances our experience with the game, from the way that they've just trimmed down everything, makes it so that you can really become adept at certain play styles and with certain weapons. And you can learn to use those things and those loadouts really well in those endgame activities and both increase your power and your skill. But at some point, you're going to run into that cap at the end at 305. And some people ran into it in the first week. Some of us are running into it right now. Sometimes you'll run into it maybe in a month if you don't play as much, but you will eventually hit that cap. I like that they're trying to say, hey, there are these prestige activities. They won't give you any meaningful number increases, but they will give you an experience increase. They will give you this really, challenging thing to go after that will give you a cosmetic reward, And I like that setup. I like that 305 is attainable, because what it means is that I don't feel like I'm compelled and motivated to do all the hardest stuff to get to the highest number. Ultimately, numbers in this game are not as important. It's just something to, it's something to do, to increase while you fill your time playing the game. And if you find yourself really enjoying it, you can get that number really high and then to the cap. And then once you're at the cap, you can start thinking about some of those really challenging, difficult prestigious events to do. And I like that organization. I feel like it really streamlines what the Destiny experience has always been intended to be. That it was about, gearing up together and then doing something really heroic and legendary together. And I feel like that's what it is. It is more simple and less cumbersome than it has been in previous times. It has been more accessible than it's been in previous times. But I really like the direction they've taken with it. And I feel like its pathways and its rewards, its dividends that it offers you are really great. And they do satisfy for the investment that you make. That is kind of a minority opinion, it seems, from just the airspace. Certainly the game is not without flaws. Certainly the end game could use some additional carrots on sticks or incentives, but I find myself extremely pleased with the direction of the end game. And I love the fact that the end game had 40 light increase from 265 to 305 rather than the traditional 10 or 15 or 20 that we've gotten in other things too. And I think it made it satisfying to be able to pull from different areas like they did at the end of D1 so that you could gear up whatever activities you want to play. Those are kind of my basic thoughts. What do you think, Cyborg? What do you think about the end game? Where you could start with, what do you think are some areas that it could be improved that I didn't mention, or areas that I did mention that you disagree with? Whatever you fancy.
Yeah.
Whatever you fancy.
Overall, my attitude as I've kind of digested Destiny 2, I tried to give it enough time to develop a clear opinion on it. I wanted to make sure that I had thoroughly explored the game in all the different aspects of what's available and what has value. And I think that my reservations with the end game of Destiny 2 have to do with how they've built the game and its accessibility. And I think that the problem that I have is a solution for many. The way that they've built the game is absolutely more accessible than it's ever been. I think that is a very good thing for new players or even more casual players. Something that Luke Smith brought up before Destiny 2 came out was the fact that the way they designed Destiny 1, it just could not fit reasonably into your life. To do everything and to get all the value out of the game, you just had to spend an inordinate amount of time playing the game. Mm-hmm. And that was a boon to many that wanted that type of experience. There's a value in that for many. But for some, it was an unreachable and unobtainable plateau to reach to get to the highest light level, or to play every activity, or to get everything, or whatever the end game was at the time. And I think that my opinion sides more with, or represents more of a minority of players that are more vocal. And that's why we're hearing or seeing more pushback, or more, negative or critical feedback about this topic, because those people are typically the most outspoken. The casual player, the 80% or the 95% or whatever that figure is, they're happy with what they're playing and they don't have a lot of criticism. And maybe the criticism they do have doesn't have to do with the end game that I have a problem with. And so the phenomena that we're seeing is places that you go where people have opinions about Destiny, whether that be Reddit or Twitter, the Bungie.net forums, all of this minority of the player base that want more depth out of the end game are being very, very critical of it. And I think part of that has to do with something Bungie can't control, which is the expectations that have been built in 3 years of playing Destiny. Whether or not this is a sequel, they can't control that I'm going to consciously or subconsciously expect certain things out of the game. You know, I brought it up last week. I'm like, where are the secrets? Like, where's the secret stuff? Where's the mystery? Where's the thing that we run across or find or explore and we dig up and we get to experience, and it's the special thing? Because that's a phenomena that's happened many times in Destiny 1 and hasn't happened yet in Destiny 2. And like it or not, they kind of set that expectation for me. Even though this is a new game, I kind of expected something like that in Destiny 2, and they haven't delivered on that. And it's for me a culmination of these small choices that were made that I feel like the game was stripped of some of its character, of some of its depth. And for me as a player, those are the things that endeared the game to me. Those were the things that made it a unique experience I couldn't get anywhere else. At the end of the day, Destiny 2, if we look at the campaign, great campaign. I just played it for the 3rd time, had a ton of fun, enjoyed it, thought to myself at the end, that was a solid campaign, like, great job, you know, tellable, understandable story. There were stakes. You went on a journey. You had times that you were moved. You had times where you felt a connection to people or characters. You felt like you were doing something grand. You were on a big adventure that mattered a lot. I mean, compared to some of the ways that they've told story in the past, I think that they turned a lot of corners with this campaign. Mm-hmm. But I can get that out of a number of games. I mean, I could rattle off dozens of excellent single player campaigns. Yeah. If we look at it just on that merit, I can get that experience elsewhere. Yeah. The experiences that I want that I can't get in other games were a lot of the things that gave depth to Destiny 1 for me that are bereft in Destiny 2. And those are the things that are making me a bit sad that I don't have.
Can I ask, so you mentioned one specific example of something that you would like to see in Destiny 2 developed more in terms of this depth. One of those is those secrets, like the Black Spindle, the Sleeper Simulant, right? And the, what's it called? Outbreak Prime. I love Outbreak Prime. What else would constitute depth for you?
I think building out some of the game to give it more replayability in some ways would definitely improve the experience for me. And they already did this in some ways in Destiny 1, either with the live team or through changes that were made in DLCs or expansions. And we talked about some of this before the show, but things like strike scoring were a hit. Strike specific
I would love to see strike scoring. I think it'd be really cool. It'd be cool if they also went, like, one of the things that has been talked about before is they added stuff like even just clan leaderboards, right? So that you could see how you rank against other people, or if they added like a new set of loot that you get for doing the scoring versions. I would love to see strike scoring. I think it was really fun in D1. I'm not sure we'll get it in D2, but that would be awesome. Yeah.
I think they should. I think that they're missing a bigger opportunity if they don't bring that in.
I don't think that's quite an end game thing, or I don't think it was done as an end game thing in D1 other than through the Nightfall. But so that would be an area of depth that you can see them adding.
And if we wanted to talk specifically about the raid, and again, I won't spoil any part of it encounters for you, but a big complaint that many people have had that are playing the raid, and even the complaint of some that haven't even finished the raid, is that the loot system is a little underwhelming, because it almost is reminiscent of year one Vault of Glass. Like, you will sometimes come out of 3/4 of the raid with just tokens. And in Destiny 1, it was like you did a whole raid and you ended up with shards and like 1 drop.
Yeah.
And it was punishing.
It is. Well, and I would say my only caveat to that is like so far, because I haven't beaten the raid, I got 30 tokens. I would love it if they would let me talk to the vendor immediately. Kind of like they do for trials, where there's that low bar of entry. Second you beat one encounter, I would love to see them just make that vendor available. I know there's probably I'm sure there's a reason behind it. I'm sure that when I get done and I actually beat the raid and then I can talk to the vendor, everything will be fine. I'll be happy. But it is a little bit disappointing, and I would agree with you in that. But like, I think the token economy in general, I think is significantly better as both a endgame mechanic as well as a reputation mechanic and a gear earning thing. Like, yeah, I think it feels like we get less, but in reality, those Ascendant materials, we couldn't trade in for more gear. They were just used to upgrade.
Yeah, you had to use them. Yeah, to upgrade other gear.
And so, like, I think that I like the token economy, and I just wish I would have been able to turn in my tokens and get a drop already. Because Thaden is the only person in our group that got drops.
I would feel a little bit better, even more so with the token economy in the raid, if those packages that dropped were on the level of power that's on par with the raid.
That's fair.
But
I think that's a really fair point.
Those tokens that drop from that vendor are the same as any other vendor. It's, the max is what there's not a term for this, but there is a soft max level on your legendary engrams that is a value percentage below your maximum light level.
Yeah.
In certain vendors at certain times, that I actually realized this last week. This is worth mentioning. There's a guy that put up a site, and what he does is he uses crowdsourcing and voting for people to tell you at what time certain vendors are offering higher light gear on their drops.
See, this is the Destiny 1 grind we all know and love. People making websites outside of the game to track which stuff gives you.
I wasn't even aware of this. I think this is a poorly telegraphed phenomena in the game, but at certain times, the vendor packages drop a little higher or a little lower, just depending on some balance in the game.
Your blues can drop at 300 too. Have you seen that?
What will?
Your blues can drop at 300
blues,
as well.
Yeah, I've had blues drop at 300.
It's time-based though. It's similar to the vendors. Like there's just some times where you can, it's kind of like a dice roll.
Sometimes it's higher, sometimes lower.
Yeah, which I mean, like, if you want to talk like Destiny 1 magic, that is the Destiny 1 magic. Cumbersome, ridiculous, not telegraphed anywhere. That is Destiny 1.
Just totally like roll your dice, right?
And to be honest, I kind of like it personally. I kind of like it.
I'm totally okay with it for like all the other vendors in the game. Like that's kind of a cool thing, and you can go to certain ones at certain times when you're trying to get higher stuff. Whatever, that's cool, like small part of the game. But for the raid vendor, I'd feel a lot better if after a long run or like 2 or 3 runs through the week, and maybe I just got a handful of drops, or the drops that I got were duplicates, if I could go to that vendor and get drops that are on par with my light level and have them be useful to me, keeping my progression higher and my power level.
I could see that. I think my only counterpoint to that would be there are so many ways to increase light. Like, people aren't looking for another way to increase their light right now. If anything, a lot of the criticism is it's too easy to get the highlight stuff as it is. So, I mean, as much as
I suppose so,
I could see it. I could see it happening
stuff
that way.
becomes of minimal utility.
Yeah.
Pretty fast.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on, like, I wouldn't be opposed to them changing that system.
Yeah. And then again on the rate, something that they added in that I loved, that was really cool with Rise of Iron, was when they added the ornaments that you could earn only through the I think it was the heroic raid and going flawless.
Yes.
And you could add those to the gear that was specific for that activity. Now, we know that they don't have that for going flawless in trials.
Or for the Nightfall prestige.
Yeah, so I'm not expecting this for the raid. But that, in some ways, that did provide, a little extra incentive to go do that. And it was totally vanity. But when you saw that guy in the tower who had that fully decked out, like Trials ornamented armor, you're like, yo, this dude Trials is, you know,
Yeah,
like,
no, I agree with you on that.
Gave you a little respect. Same thing for rating. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really cool. It gave it a little bit extra depth. And so these are just examples of small things that they built over time that I felt gave the game more character, gave it more depth, gave you more reasons to run these activities. So you felt like you were always being rewarded, even if you were getting duplicates of stuff. You had opportunities to get other things that would make it more interesting, right?
No, yeah, absolutely.
And so there's a lot of things that people have brought up that were in Destiny 1 that built the game out more, that gave it more replayability, more depth, lengthened or built onto the end game that I think are non-existent in Destiny 2. And I think the best way I'm trying to think about it right now in my desire to stay positive about that experience is someone put it this way in a comment on this discussion in Reddit that I read this week. And they pointed out that it seems that, and these are, I suppose, game development terms. So forgive me if you're a developer and I get these completely wrong. I'm talking about this from memory, but his comment was that it seems that they have done what's called front loading the game, which is they focused on the core aspects of the game first, delivered well on those, as opposed to backloading the game where you've got to do both and you've got to build depth into it and do everything and add on all the little sub parts of what give a game a lot of depth and really build it out. The benefit I think that we can look at is that we did see in Destiny 1 through expansions and through the live team working a lot of quality of life stuff built out over time. Bungie absolutely listened to what the community wanted, in a lot of ways, sometimes to our detriment. But they answered a lot of things over time. It wasn't always in the timing that we wanted. And there were absolutely, long periods along the way. And there was a lot of stuff going on at Bungie over those 3 years. But over time, they built out a really impressive game. And so my hope is that what they decided to do with Destiny 2 was, like we've talked about, to set the stage and set a foundation with really good systems for how the game works. And now there's this beautiful palette that the team can build on over time with expansions and with the live team, with quality of life, with live events. And my hope is that over the next year, with what we have been promised content-wise, that they're going to build more into this game that's going to give it more character, which is what I'm looking for. I want more depth. Things like, there's lore in the game, but I think if you go talk to any lore geek that spent a lot of time in Destiny 1, it's a little bit shallow. Some of what they considered their answers to the lore that's going to be in the game. I mean, these scannable objects are pretty touch and go. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like one line and sometimes it's literally about nothing.
Yeah.
The most depth that you get in the lore is the sidebar on exotics and the raid gear.
Yep. That's the most you get for sure.
Yeah. And that's a small portion of what we used to get, in Destiny 1. And that for me, as somebody that was into that stuff, that's something that makes me kind of sad. I personally found the kind of collectible, like searching for like dead ghosts and Siva fragments and, what were they called in the Taken King? Now I'm drawing a blank. the 50
calcified fragments.
Calcified fragments. I found that really fun and cool. Like, it was totally an RPG, like, time suck thing, but it made you go out into the world and explore, and it made kind of a mini game of, like, over time, like, you would find these and your friend would be like, oh, did you get this one? Like, check this one out. And you'd go and you'd kind of like bounce around and you'd find that. And it was like it was a community activity. Like, it was things that you helped your friends with. And then it ultimately led to something that was rewarding for you, that you did it as part of a quest. It's just all these little things that have been stripped away that I felt gave the game so much character, and now it just feels a little empty to me, and that makes me a little sad. I'm still having a ton of fun, and I don't want people to get me wrong. Like, I've played this game every night for a month. Like, I'm totally on it every chance I get, and I'm having a lot of fun. But I'm just missing some things, you know? Yeah. And ultimately, I think that there's definitely some depth that needs to be built out to keep players like me happy.
Yeah, I think. What do you think about the adventures? Out of curiosity, because I think those are like. I thought
they were great.
I think one of the big things about lore that you just mentioned is that in Destiny 1, all the lore was out of the game and in one place. And I want to argue that there's more lore in Destiny 2 than there was in Destiny 1. But the difference is that the lore is spread out, it's not in one place, and it's actually in the game. There's nowhere where you can find it all in one place. And I think that when you really look at how much lore was in the game, or that is in Destiny 2, in all the various places that you find it, and you compare it to the amount of lore that was in one place in the Grimoire, I think there is significantly more lore that exists in Destiny 2 than Destiny 1. But I can definitely understand the frustration for a player who wanted to collect all those things. And I did the Dead Ghost hunt as well. I loved it. And I was somebody who wanted to make sure I got all the fragments and all those other things, and I thought there was a sense of progression, and even just seeing your Grimoire score number go up. Like, I took a lot of pride in the early game at having a very high Grimoire score.
Absolutely. So
like I definitely appreciate that, but I think that what they've done is more simple and practical. And I feel like I've engaged with more lore.
It's definitely more accessible.
Yeah.
It is more practical, but I think the caveat is, like, the difference is that the adventures are more story presented in a wholly different way. The adventures are really, in reality, the adventures are small missions that are not part of the campaign.
Yeah. And
but the way that we're playing adventures is pretty much what happened after the end of Taken King, when you were given quest lines to go on and do other things in the world, and you played missions, but they just weren't campaign missions. And the adventures are essentially smaller bite-sized missions, and then you have the 4 different quests that are a little bit more developed, and they're all telling some part of a story. Yeah. But it's mostly story that's happening now as part of the game. Fair. And in some of the Grimoire were things that were happening. You know, there would be select Grimoire cards that were telling you behind the scenes, like, oh, well, this character, Prince Uldren, this, now we get a card on him, and apparently he's like, crashed on Mars and he's infiltrating the House of Kings, like things that they didn't do anywhere in the game, but you had to read about. Yeah. But there are things that I think that we are missing. The legends, that people, some of those legends are their favorite things about Destiny. Yeah. I mean, Dwindler's Ridge is like one of the most well-known Grimoire stories for even people that didn't read Grimoire. One of the most beloved stories in Destiny, and it's only in text, Yeah. And I think that, they could. I think that if they could present it a different way, or if they could have added more across the board, I think I'd be a little bit happier about it. But you're right. It's not as if they did not deliver on their promise that there would be lore in the game, that there would be more story in the game. They did, in fact, do that.
One of the
whole
crazy
reason
things too about the adventures is that you mentioned that they're very much akin to Destiny 1 story missions, and there's significantly more intelligible and interesting and well-delivered story in any of those adventures than there are in any of the vanilla Destiny story missions, except maybe the Black Garden.
For sure.
They've
it's absolutely improved their storytelling.
Yeah, well, and if you look at one of the cool things, if you look in Destiny 1 right now, I think the number of missions in Destiny 1 right this moment is like 77. And the number of missions, adventures, and quest missions in Destiny 2, which I think we would both agree are a significantly higher level of quality, at launch without any DLC, we're over 80, which is insane. It's insane that they were able to make that much content and put it out. So I think I definitely resonate with what you're saying in terms of that you wish there was some aspect of that. There was something very special about the way that the lore was presented in D1. And we can only hope that they'll find ways to add some of that as time goes on. But the base that we have is incredible. And if they're going to tell us stories about legends of old through adventures, sign me up, because that sounds awesome. Yeah. I hope they use that vehicle to do that. I think one of the things that I wonder what you think about this. I would say that one of the biggest parts of depth in Destiny 2 is that they took away a lot of the options, right? One of the big complaints that people have is there's not as many options. There's not as many different types of guns that you have because the roles are limited, right? I think that Destiny 2 trims down the number of actual choices you have, but it increases the number of significant choices that you have. And this is, I think, one of the reasons why I love Destiny 2's endgame so much. I mentioned before about learning to master and develop your skill in your subclass. I actually really like the subclass trees. I like the way that they trim those down because they made them into very distinct play styles. And whereas before, maybe you had more actual options of combinations and loadouts, but now I feel like the options are more meaningful and purposeful. And so I feel like the real end game of Destiny 2, which is different than the end game of Destiny 1, is mastery. And they've done this with PvP. They do this with the prestige activities, the Nightfall and the Raid. The end game of Destiny ought to be mastery and prestigious accomplishments that are then rewarded by these special rewards, tokens to demonstrate it. And really, it's about the people that you then do those activities with, because every one of those prestigious activities, Trials Flawless, Raid Prestige Mode, Nightfall Prestige, you have to go in with your squad. And I think that you have to hone, you've got to learn the ins and outs of all of your subclasses and their different permutations. And you've got to learn how you use those things. And even for me, as I did the Nightfall this week, I had to really design, I'm going to go with this weapon and this weapon for these specific reasons, and I'm going to have to get really good at using them. I'm going to have to not kill myself 10 times with the Wardcliff coil, even though it's my favorite exotic in the whole game.
That's what I used on the Nightfall.
It's so good. But I think that my biggest argument for endgame, beyond even that organization that I would suggest, is that the endgame in Destiny 2 is all about mastery. And the endgame of Destiny 1 was not. And I think that for some people, they don't want to demonstrate mastery in those ways. They wanted to demonstrate it in other ways. Like I said, I don't want to say that they want the wrong thing in their game. Absolutely not. There's tons of video games out there that specialize in all these different things, and Destiny 1 gave them that. It gave them that grind and that type of progression. But I think Destiny 2 is a different kind of game. It is very much a follow-up on the philosophy that really built and guided Destiny's updates. And it's finding its way to change some of the fundamental aspects of the game so that it can continue along that path and guide you toward mastery with your friends. And I think that that's what the end game is all about. And I'm really satisfied by it, but I can really understand where the depth is missing for you in some of these cases. And I hope that they add some of that back. I hope that they bring some of those features back and make it both of those things together. And I think there's definitely opportunity for it.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it is more beneficial for the developer to build a game that succeeds for the vast majority of players, as opposed to a player like me. Like, I am a small percentage of players. I don't have the spending power as an individual or even part of that group that, 2.9 million other players have.
Yeah, but I don't even think that, even in this, my observations and my love of this doesn't necessarily represent the 90%, because I'm a 1% too. Like, I'm going to play this game more than the vast majority of people if I follow on this pace. How many people did 14 Nightfalls last week? Probably very few.
Right.
That's not to toot my own horn or say that I'm super amazing. It's just to say that I play this game in a very dedicated way. And it's interesting because I have a perspective that's a little bit different than a lot of people that are playing the game at the level in terms of time commitment and investment that I'm playing it. But that's what I'm doing, and that's how I'm responding to the game. Like, that doesn't discount your opinion because you play it differently than I do. And my opinion doesn't necessarily reflect the love and desires of others.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that if their goal was to provide a much stronger upfront experience, then I think they did really well with that.
Yeah, they definitely did. The base of Destiny 2 is so much better than Destiny 1.
Yeah, I think a huge problem that they faced in Destiny 1 was that the upfront experience was frankly pretty poor, and people maybe played for a month, and I can tell you how many people, so many people have told me this. They played for 2 to 4 weeks and then they shelved it because there was something they were unhappy about. And there was a lot of things to gripe about in Destiny 1 when it was in its first iteration. It had a lot of big flaws. And so, long term, those are customers lost.
Yeah.
For a developer that has a game like this. They didn't go buy the DLCs. They may not, a lot of people came back after the Taken King. A lot of new players came in with the Taken King, and that was a big deal for them. But there were still players that never came back, may never come back, but never came back until Destiny 2 released. And there's new players that came in for Destiny 2 that never played Destiny 1. And so if their goal was to provide an excellent experience in the first 50 to 100 hours, I think they did a really good job.
Oh, absolutely.
It
really is unparalleled.
After that point that I think has a lot of people really critical. And I think that if this is the type of content that we can expect, I am okay with it if they regularly update the game. As a player that plays the way that I do, which is like really just grinding up this game all the time, right? And just playing the heck out of it. I can live with this if I got an expansion, maybe every 3 or 4 months. If I got a handful of live events a year, if they, maintain the sandbox and do all those things, if they can keep us out of that territory that we faced after the Taken King, when there was I don't even remember, it was maybe 7 to 9 months of nothing new, right?
Yeah, it was rough.
If we don't venture into that territory, I can be okay with that as a player, because the itch that maybe Destiny isn't scratching right now for me, I can go explore other games, and that's okay. That's a great thing. It's a good thing for a gamer. There's a ton of other awesome games out there. And I'm not saying that the answer to being unhappy with Destiny 2 is, well, go play other games. It's just saying, for me, playing the way that I did in Destiny 1 maybe wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to be okay with not doing that anymore. And, maybe I dial back at a certain point once I feel like I've conquered everything, and maybe I jump on once or twice a week and then I play other stuff. I can be okay with that if I have more depth to look forward to over time. And that is the, my hope, and that is the opinion I'm developing, that, ultimately Destiny and Bungie, they'll never be able to provide enough content that will satiate everybody's total gaming hobby. Like if you game like 40, 50 hours a week or however much, that's not a number. That's not how much I play, guys. But if you're like a hardcore gamer, like no one game, unless it's just a grind fest, is going to be able to keep you totally fascinated every day of the year.
Yeah. And let's be clear. Destiny 1 was the grind fest. Like, progression in Destiny 1 was
absolutely parts of Destiny 1 were that.
Get to level 20, and then you grind strikes, which were killing a bullet sponge at the end, of a mission.
Yeah.
And then you got enough gear to do the raid, and then you got nothing from it, so you deleted your other character, made a new one.
But don't put on the rose-colored glasses. We complained about that a lot.
And we asked for it to be easier. And that's not to say that Destiny, once again, did not have its charm. It was wonderful for its time, but I think we soured on it in a lot of ways, and we asked for it to become easier and to become more, the path to progression be more direct. And we asked for these special things, I'm hoping that we get some of these things that we're, kicking around that we'd love to see in the game. But even if we don't, one of the things I'm trying to have in mind is I didn't expect to play Destiny 2 for longer than a month, because I don't play games like that usually. And I can't expect to play Destiny 2 for the same level I played Destiny 1. I played Destiny 1 like every day for 3 years. That's sick. That's crazy. There's like diseases that they categorize for people that do stuff like that, But but I did it, it was fun, and I enjoyed those days. But those days aren't today. Yeah. Like, we have something new and something different, and I think Snatching Panda posted in the general chat, and I really appreciated what he said. He basically said, "Look, I'm done trying to make this game something it's not." I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, "I'm just going to try to take it one day at a time, and not try to think about the future, not try to think about what they're going to add down the road or what I want them to add. I'm just going to take this game for what it is. It's fun. I'm going to try to have fun with it." Yeah. And I think that we're well served to take on that same mentality, even though it's not perfect. Like, we talked about all the things that we'd love to see them add to the game and some of the depth they could stand to add. I think at the end of the day, like you mentioned before, this stands on its own as being, at least 100 hours of a premium experience that you can get nowhere else, full of incredible story, incredible gunplay, really amazing gameplay choices, a great PvP mode, and it does things that nobody else is doing. And even if it's just 100 hours that we get that's an incredible amount of time to give us a premium experience like they have, with meaningful and quick progression, where you feel like you put an hour into a night and you get something out of it. That's a pretty staggering thing. And so I think we can just take it for what it is and enjoy it. That's kind of my perspective right now. And hopefully it will continue to improve, and we'll continue to enjoy it.
I agree. And I appreciate your viewpoint on all of this, and talking through it with you definitely tempers some of my anxieties about the game, just hearing another viewpoint. And I think it needs to be heard, in a positive way, looking at the game. And ultimately, we're getting a lot of value out of the dollar that we put out. And I think that what Bungie wants to do is create a game that's both more manageable for them as a developer and is more manageable for you as a player to fit into your life. And I think Destiny 2 is a game that is more manageable to fit into your life in a way that's realistic and still feels like you said, when you jump in, however much time that you're spending a week, if it's 1 hour or 10 hours, that you're progressing or you're getting rewarded, or that you've had some fun, and they do a good job at that. They hit the mark.
Yeah. And I feel like one of my biggest things, so I'm not I sometimes will calculate the hours per dollar that I'm getting out of a game.
Yeah.
but to be honest, like, the games I love are indie games. And indie games almost never deliver $1 an hour, but they're premium experiences. That's how I view them. I see them as these really special things, and they can inspire
curated works of art.
They are, yeah. And they can just give you this incredible sense that you didn't see anywhere else. They can give you an experience that you never saw in any other game. And they do it at a premium price per hour. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll play an indie game and it's 3 hours, 2.5 hours, but it's $20, $25, I consider that worth it, because I think that the quality level of the experience is just so incredible. And I think Destiny does something really unique in that it delivers a premium experience for an absurd amount of time. I don't even know how they would focus test the progression systems in this game. I mean, imagine trying to focus test all right, we're going to try the progression system. We're going to try to focus test it. All right, we need Bill, Larry, and John. You guys play 150 hours of the game and tell us if it's still satisfying at the end of it.
Luke Smith, I think, said he, over a long holiday weekend, he had taken home a build of the game at a point, and he played so many hours over three days just testing out the system, and he found a bad drop off, but the dude was sleeping 2 hours a night according to the math. It had to be insane to focus test.
Yeah, well, and
the progression,
they said
and
that was the part that was coming in most hot. That was the part that they were struggling with getting right, was the progression.
I think it is a very delicate balance, and if it is slightly imbalanced now, I think now that it's out in the wild and they're getting a ton of feedback, if there are ways to improve it, I think they are receptive. I think they're looking at that, and I think that it has the possibility to be improved. So I think we should look forward to that and stay positive on that level.
Definitely.
Well, great, man. Well, we have run super long on this episode, so we probably need to wrap it up.
Probably.
If you stuck with us, we appreciate that.
I apologize to all the people who wanted a short podcast, and to all the people who have long commutes. You're welcome. Yep,
absolutely. There's both of those exist. Normally, this part of the show where we would do Derp Fam Discourse. That is the part of the show where you get to chime in, the listener. So if you want us to talk about something, you got a question, if you've got a comment about something we talked about on the show, or you want to tell us about something positive you've seen happen in the community, send us an email to destinyresetpodcast@gmail.com, or leave us a speak pipe, which is like a voicemail. You get about 90 seconds, and you can go to speakpipe.com/destinyreset. We feature most of those when we can on the show, if they have great content or provide a great question or comment. So please send them our way. And then I've got to give one shout out. We've got a new patron this month, and that is Mr. JC Jesse. Yes, JC Jesse from Dad Tales Podcast. If you haven't heard those guys, go check them out. Thanks for supporting us, man. We really appreciate that, from one podcaster to another. If you would like to support us, you can do so financially at patreon.com/destinyreset. For as little as $1 a month, you can help contribute to the production budget of the show and help make it a better show for you. We appreciate all of our patrons, and we like to give them shout outs on the show. We put you up on the website, and we got some other little perks here and there as well. So cruise on over, and we appreciate all of our patrons every month. You can also, if you don't want to do it that way, you can support us by just sending us a tip via PayPal. We've got a link to that on our website. So that is all for the show this week. Joe, where can people find you?
I am almost always these days lurking in PlayStation or Xbox One on Joe the Meeden for Xbox One. It is Joe the Mieden. And if you want to get me on PlayStation, it's just Joe Meeden. I like to play Destiny 2, so I play Destiny 2. I'm also on Discord. You can tag me there. I think it's Joe the Meeden. And then, I don't know, that's probably the best place to find me. I'm not really anywhere else at this point if I have time off. So, yeah, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, I neglected to introduce you properly at the beginning of the show. But if you don't know Joe, he is one of our community founders and administrators. He's one of those yellow guys in Discord. And he's been with the community for a very long time. He's a great resource. I would definitely add him to your friends list and play with him when you can. And he's just an all-around great guy. So thanks for joining us this
Thanks,
week,
Cyborg.
man.
It's always good to hang with you, and love the Dirt fam. And yeah, definitely what Cyborg said, if you're interested in grouping up, just let me know. I'm not very good at PvP, but I like to have fun, and I like to do Nightfalls. So
I wouldn't look down on you.
We have a good time. It's good.
Yeah. All right. You can find me at CyborgSasquatch on Twitter and then on Twitch, twitch.tv/CyborgSasquatch, streaming Tuesday, Wednesday nights, and Saturday nights. Usually playing Destiny or something else. It's fun. And then finally, you can find us at Destiny Reset on Twitter, and also on the World Wide Web at www.destinyresetpodcast.com. That's your source for all things DRP, including links to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app of choice. Then, what else? What other kind of business we got to tie up? If you've left an iTunes review for us, thank you. I'm not sure. I don't think we have any new ones this week. I checked earlier at the beginning of the weekend. I didn't see any new ones, but hey, if you've left us one, we appreciate it. If you haven't, cruise on over to iTunes. Go leave us a review, your honest review. We really appreciate them. Those reviews help us get seen by more listeners, which is great, especially when there's new Guardians that are looking for a great podcast to call home. And that's all, Joe.
That's all we got.
Thanks for coming by again, man. I'll see you.
My pleasure.
In the tower.
Yeah, we'll see you then.
Until next week, have fun playing Destiny 2 and take care, Guardians.